I want to talk to you about immigration and what the government are trying to do to ensure that we've got manageable levels of legal net migration in our country, and that we make sure we've got control and end the chaos in our illegal migration flows into the country. So the first thing to say about this debate is that many of us in West Cumbria know that we've got people who've come to the UK, particularly to our community, to work in the NHS as doctors or nurses, or work in social care, or come and work at, for example, the Dalton Nuclear Research Centre at West Lakes, run by Manchester University, who are PhDs from all around the world. We've got a strong tradition as a community of welcoming people who've come to make a major contribution. And the starting point for this really is to say thank you to those people and make sure they know they are welcome. Now, that should not take away from the fact that net migration levels over the last few years have been far too high. That shouldn't be a controversial thing to say. Last year, the last time that this was recorded, net migration into the UK was over 700,000 in 1 year. The year before that, it was over 900,000. And at the time of Brexit, it was just over 300,000. Last time Labour was in government in 2010, it was just a little bit over 200,000. So these levels have gone up and up and up, and the Tories in the last government left the system completely out of control. Now, that has a number of consequences. It means that we can't effectively integrate people into communities because the rate of migration is so high, and it risks creating large groups of diaspora who move to the same area, and there's a lack of integration in our communities. The second problem relates to housing and infrastructure. If you've got rates of net migration that are that high and we haven't got the house building keeping up, it does inevitably put pressure on services. So for those two reasons it really matters, and for the third reason, which is that we need to make sure that in the UK we're training up people with the skills to work in some of these key areas. And there is an economic and social cost here in the UK to simply use immigration as the route to fix labour market problems. And there's also, and this is talked about a lot less, there's a big problem in the countries that we're recruiting people from. We're recruiting doctors and nurses from countries in West Africa, and there is an impact on those countries too. So it's not sustainable to have the levels of net migration that we've had over the last couple of years. We need to bring that into a much more controlled space. So the government this week, through a white paper, set out a number of measures, which includes changes to visa rules to toughen them up, to bring those numbers down, making sure that we put extra requirements on speaking and learning English for people that are coming to live and work in the UK, and then finally making sure that people need to be here for 10 years before they can apply for citizenship. The Prime Minister's been really clear that they're just the first step of measures, and we'll take further measures if we need to in order to bring net legal migration down. Now, the second point relates to small boats crossings and illegal migration. People quite rightly think it is totally unacceptable that in the year 2025 we've lost control of our borders and our border security. We've had years of mismanagement at the border. We've put in place a new border security force. We've ensured in the last few months that we've got over 1,000 new people working to go through the backlog of people with asylum claims. There's been tens of thousands of people in that asylum backlog that we inherited from the last government. And this week, the government have been negotiating a wider deal on a returns agreement with Albania and neighbouring countries so that we can return people more quickly. But understandably, there are people who are angry about the fact that we've got 10,000 foreign national offenders in prisons here in the UK, and we need to make sure that people who've come here, who've committed crimes, are returned swiftly. Returns of people who are criminals into the UK has gone up by over 20% since Labour came to power. We've returned over 2,000 people who are foreign criminals, and we'll continue to go further on that, and we'll use biometrics and digital ID to ensure that we can toughen up our border security. So there's a whole package of measures that we're taking. We're only 11 months into the government. We're already starting to get a grip of this problem, and we know there's much more to do. It's an important issue for people. I don't want to ignore it or simply conclude that because people want to talk about it or they're concerned about it, that means it's a no-go subject. It's an important issue for people. I take it seriously. So does the government. And I hope that this has been a useful update on what we're doing on net migration, which we're trying to bring down so we can get the benefits of people coming to the UK, because lots of people do want to come here, and that's a positive thing. but we need to make sure we've got control over it so we can use our values to select who should be coming here in the future. And then on illegal migration, we need to completely get control of our border, of the English Channel, so that we can build and maintain public support for genuine cases of refugees and asylum cases, and that we can do that in a way which is, as I say, controlled and manageable. And I think that's where most of the British public are, and that's what they expect of the government and of our politicians.